Hello, people of Earth and beyond. I'm not dead. Yay! I know I haven't posted anything in like 2 months now, I think, and I just wanted to reassure my 10 or so subscribers that I'm not dead, I'm alive and well. I've just been really busy, and with the new school year starting, I'm still trying to work out my schedule and figure out when I'm going to be able to post videos and so yeah, that's the whole thing, and anyway, I'm sorry I haven't posted anything, but I'm posting something today. Today I am going to be reviewing The Young Elites by Marie Lu, and this is actually going to be a pretty short video because I don't have a lot to say about it. I don't have really hardly anything to criticize, so I'm just gonna give my general thoughts on it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. There were a couple slight things that bothered me, but I mean, like I said, not much to criticize. And anyway, let's just kind of get into the video now. Let's start with what the book's about. This story follows Adelina Amotaru, and I am 100% sure that is how you pronounce her name, who is a merchant's daughter, and she lives in Quneitra, which is a country in this world that Marie Lu has built that has been struck by this thing called the blood fever. And it was a couple years ago when the story takes place, but it affected a large number of the population, and some people came out of the blood fever with markings, as in their hair changed colors, their eyes changed colors, some of them have markings on their skin, and somehow it looks like they are not quite of this earth anymore, like their hair turns an unnatural color or their eyes turn an unnatural color. And these people that were marked by the fever are called Malfettos, which I don't remember the actual translation in the book, but it basically means that they are abominations in everyone else's eyes. That sounds harsh, but that's pretty much how they view it. Anyway, some of these Malfettos have powers, and when Adelina runs away from home, she discovers that she has powers too, and there is a secret society called the Young Elites. At least that's what everybody else calls them. And they are the Malfettos that have powers, and no one knows quite who they are, but they give them these nicknames like the Reaper and the Messenger and the Spider and Windwalker, Star Thief, and the Architect. Hey, I remembered them all. Anyway, Adelina eventually catches up with these, doesn't catch up with them, that's a bad way to put it. She runs into the elites, and they decide to train her and make her one of them. And I'm going to kind of leave it there. The elites, or as they call themselves, the Dagger Society, they're assassins basically. And I'm trying to be very vague about this. I really don't want to give too much away, but she is training to be part of their society. And yeah, also she kind of ends up helping their enemy, the Inquisition. Oh gosh, that's a spoiler, I'm sorry. But the reason I wanted to bring that particular point up is because I'm about to talk about the plot. Now, one of the few minor qualms I have with this story is that the plot feels a little bit cliche. I mean, I feel like I've heard this before. The main character discovers they have powers they don't know about, they meet others who have powers like theirs, and they end up working with them in training for whatever, learning it how to use their abilities, and eventually become more powerful than everybody else, and also they're working with the enemy. They're like a double spy person because that enemy has some kind of hold over them. It just sounds like something I've read or seen before, and I can't exactly place where, but it sounds familiar. However, I actually don't mind too much, even though I was thinking as I read this book, this plot seems familiar. I don't really mind because it was all really tastefully done. I'm about to talk about the writing of the book, which in my opinion was really good. The whole, like, I didn't really have a problem with it. I think Marie Lu took some risks that I don't normally see in this storyline, and she did not tie everything up in a neat little bow at the end. I think the way she ended it is drastically different from anything I've seen before. Moral of the story to all you writers out there, it's okay if your plot seems a little bit cliche at times. It's all in how you do it. It's all in the execution. That's what I want to say. Okay, let's move on. Okay, let's talk about the actual writing, which, like I said, in my opinion, is really good. I am, I guess, starting to like present tense. I used to hate it. Like, there's one book that I really enjoyed in middle school that's written in present tense, and I had to kind of pretend that it was in past tense because it just bothered me so much that it was in present tense. But for this book, I think that it really, really worked. Um, my one thing about present tense is that it really needs to be in first person, in my opinion, and again, it's just my opinion. But it's easier to read present tense if it's from a first person perspective. It's a little weird to me to read Taryn pauses, he looks, he, whatever. Like, third person in present tense, it doesn't really click for me. It's a little bit distracting and difficult, more difficult for me to read. I feel like I'm pulled in more if it's in present tense and it's first person. And speaking of which, the present tense, the use of it in this book is really captivating, and it does really pull you into the action of the story. It is like you're watching a movie, like you're watching the events unfold, and especially coupled with Marie Lu's vivid imagery, it was a thing of beauty. That's the other thing I want to talk about, is that this book has so many vivid descriptions. The imagery is almost tangible, and I really like Marie Lu's writing style. I think the attention to detail that she pays to everything is incredible. For example, Adelina only has one eye, and every time it's in Adelina's perspective and she closes her eyes, Marie Lu made special care to say, I close my eye. Like, there was stuff like that, but also in her imagery, in her descriptions, she just paints a beautiful picture. So I really enjoyed reading it for that aspect. And all of that vivid imagery and description fits so well into the world building, which is the next thing that I'm going to talk about. The world building in this book is really good, like super, super amazing. Ah, it's wonderful. Anyway, the society that they live in Kinetra is based on Italy, I believe, during the Renaissance. And it really shows both in the language that they use and the descriptions of everything. Like, the city is filled with canals, so you definitely get the idea of Venice. You can tell just from the word Malfetto that there is some Italian influence. Something else I want to point out is that at the beginning of each chapter we have these quotes that are from writings from Kinetra, like different authors. So you can definitely tell that Marie Lu has this world expanded, like it has its own literature. It has its own literature, it has its own mythologies. They talk about their gods a lot, and you can see their influence in the culture. And I think the magic system, which is mainly just Malfettos have powers, I think it's all really well explained. The culture is absolutely beautiful. I think the only thing I would say would be maybe I would like to see a little bit more of the class system, because it's there. Like, you have merchants and you have aristocracy and you have the prince, and then like you have Malfettos. So I would like to see a little bit of where the divides are between the classes. But since they are in Estensia, which is the capital city, they're mostly everyone around them is aristocracy, I guess. But anyway, that would be my only thing. Other than that, the culture that is in this book is absolutely stunning. Now we come to the characters, and I'm not going to go in depth with all of them. I am not going to take the time to talk about all of them because for a lot of them there's actually nothing to talk about. So let me just touch on Adelina, the main character. I think she's really well written and she's constantly battling her inner demons in this book, which is really good. And I think it's all really well explained what she's feeling and how everything affects her. I didn't get really attached to her. I actually didn't get attached to any of the characters in this book. And it's not that I don't think they're well written. I think they are, asterisk, which we're going to come back to later. But they're not characters that I would cry over. I didn't vibe with them. I can follow their story, but I didn't really personally connect with them, which is fine, and I'm gonna come back to that point a little bit later. I don't think that any of these characters are necessarily flat. I think Marie Lu really hints that she knows the backstory of all of them, which I think is great. We don't really get to know it a whole lot, especially with the daggers. They are well-rounded enough for the story. The story really follows Adelina and what she's dealing with, and we only jump to another character's perspective when it's something important is happening to them. And I think that's fine. For the purposes of the story, it's really fine. We actually barely get to know the daggers at all, other than Enzo and Raphael. And part of that's because they're meant to be mysterious, I guess. But that's like the one detriment, I think, with the characters. Is like, even if they're meant to be mysterious, I think Adelina could have spent a little more time with them and formed some more bonds with them. Like, she only has a few scenes with them where she's actually getting to know them a little bit. And again, with the exception of Enzo and Raphael. And I think, just based on the epilogue, we're going to get to know Lucent a little bit more in the second book. But again, that's just, they're not flat. I don't think they're flat, but I think they're not explored at all. And for the story it worked, but I think time could have been taken to know them a little bit better, because then it would have been a little bit jarring when at the end they don't trust her anymore. Enzo and Raphael, I think, are developed enough just for this book. We see a little bit of depth in them when there's like a hint of sadness in Raphael, and Enzo with his backstory with Daphne. And that's all good. But I actually want to touch on Enzo very briefly, just for one specific thing. Spoiler alert! I don't necessarily like the romance between Adelina and Enzo. I felt like it was a little underdeveloped. Like, it was just, I felt like there wasn't enough time in it for it to be actual love. It was almost like pure passion, which is something they both have very strongly, so I guess that makes sense. But that's not why I want to talk about this. Anyway, they actually share a very steamy kiss, and when Adelina realizes it's kind of going too far, she tells Enzo to stop, and he does. He does! I don't tend to read these books myself, but I hear of so many young adult novels where abusive relationships are just romanticized and the guy just does not listen to the girl and he will not stop when she tells him to, blah 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 blah. And so Enzo actually stopping and respecting that she didn't want to go any further, like, yes, if he respects her, I will support their relationship, even if, like, I don't think it's the best romantic relationship ever. Like, if he respects her, I will support it. Yes, go. Alright, that mini rant's over. I'm actually not a big fan of romance, and so I was just kind of like, about the whole thing. And like I said, it felt a little underdeveloped relationship-wise. I don't know. Maybe it was just me. I felt like they didn't spend enough time in love, I guess. I don't know. It kind of felt to me like the romance was there just so that it could be said there was romance in the book. I think parts of it were well done, but I also think that it just kind of happened and it didn't add very much. But like I said, he respects her, so I'm happy. One last interesting note, I guess you could say this is about the characters, it's also kind of about the plot, and that is that there are no good characters. Like, this is a purely political fantasy. Like, it's all about politics and who's on the throne. And, like, the people that Adelina's working with are murderers. And they are also working against murderers. And so there's really no right or wrong side. Like, just because she's with the elites, they're the Dagger Society, whatever you want to call them, we want to root for them. But I just think it's very interesting that there is no good or evil, which is so often prevalent in fantasy books. And I mean, like, good and evil, the concepts are a part of everyday life, but there's no distinct, these are the good guys and these are the bad guys. Like I said, I really like this book, but I have to kind of come back to my asterisk here, and that is, I wouldn't recommend reading it for the characters. Like, Adelina is the only one that you really get in the head of and maybe could connect to. The others are just kind of there, especially the daggers. I would say if you're reading this book, read for the world building and the writing style. That's what really kept me going. And I do get attached to characters quite frequently. If you've watched my videos, you've heard me describe Bartimaeus as the love of my life, which he absolutely is. But with this book, I enjoyed reading it, but I couldn't connect to any of the characters at all. So if you're a big character reader, you may not enjoy this book. But if you're like me and you really appreciate world building and a solid magic system and really rich and deep descriptions, then you're probably going to enjoy it. And that's really all I have. So like I said, this was a shorter review. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to try really hard to keep this up and keep doing these. I know I took a long break and I'm sorry about that. But I'm gonna keep doing book reviews. I've got the second book in this series, so you can bet your bottom dollar I'm gonna be reading it and reviewing it. And I still need to review Ptolemy's Gate. Anyway, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll keep doing these. And that's it. So, see you next time.